Hi, everyone. I'm Cecilia here. So we have a special guest from Taiwan today, the ISSIP Ambassador, Ming-Hui. Hello, Ming-Hui. Thanks for joining us today.
Hello, it's a nice. Thank you for having me.
I know that you are wearing a lot of different hats. Could you introduce yourself to the ISSIP community?
Okay, so introduction actually is very difficult because it's more like you are talking to yourself, but I can try to do it. My name is Ming-Hui Huang, and I'm a distinguished professor at National Taiwan University in Taipei. I currently teach AI marketing and AI commerce, which are very, very interesting and fascinating. And I'm also the editor-in-chief of Journal of Service Research. I think we all know that is the number one in our service community. That's the number one service research journal. And I am very international and multidisciplinary because I am in the information management department, but I actually teach marketing and publish a lot of marketing articles and the service articles. And I'm a fellow of European Marketing Academy, a fellow, an international research fellow of University of Oxford in UK, and a distinguished research fellow at the University of Maryland. So I'm actually geographically global, not just my research. So I think that's a big background of who I am.
Amazing, amazing, like very international. Great. Like Ming-Hui, you briefly touched upon before we actually hit the button the recording, you mentioned about your very exciting course module they are teaching to a large student body in your school. Could you share like what's your, the latest work around the AI and then also service innovation in general?
Yes, I think the most exciting part is we developed theory, and we even published a book earlier last year, 2021, on the topic of the feeding economy. And then feel very strange that the feeding economy has nothing to do with service innovation, with AI. Actually, it is. It is based on the theory, the original theory that I proposed in 2018, published in Journal of Service Research, and that article also received the best article award and has been cited crazily. And in that article, I proposed that AI have and should have multiple intelligences, not just one. And the reason is AI is designed to mimic human intelligences. So if human has multiple intelligences, you can think of some people are very good at doing, and some people are very good at thinking, and some people are a people person. They are just so good at interacting with other people. We have multiple intelligences. And then in that case, if AI is designed to mimic a human intelligence, AI should not just be a thinking machine, but
Yeah,
that is what AI is right
absolutely.
now.
Mhm.
Yeah, AI is a thinking machine, and as AI continue to advance its thinking capability, then what would happen to humans? What should we do? Service researchers, service providers, service customers, and that is what the feeding economy all about. We predict that as AI continue to advance its thinking capability, then it will push the economy and also push the service into a feeding economy in which that AI does the thinking and then humans do the feeding. So we should work as a human service provider or even as human customers. We recently talked about AI customers. So now let's assume customers are humans. So human service providers and human customers, we actually should emphasize the feeding part. We should emphasize our capability to do feeding tests because that's what AI is not good at right now. But we don't say that AI cannot be good at feeding intelligence in the future. It's just that compared to human capabilities, AI is better in thinking capability, and the humans can be better because feeding has biological um, basis. So humans can be better in feeding intelligence. And in that way, thinking AI is going to push human labors and push the service economy toward a feeding economy. So
Mm,
it is still service-based, but it will focus more on the feeding part, the soft service part. That
so-
part will become even more important for our service community. Instead
exactly.
of in the past, we would say that the hard AI technology, hard service. In the feeding economy, because of thinking AI, we will emphasize the service providers, service laborers will emphasize more the soft parts, and the service sector, all the service also will lean toward more on the feeding part, soft parts, soft service. So we predict that soft service will become more important. Emphasize feelings, emphasize human nature, emphasize how people interact with each other. That part will become even more important than now. Even if now we know compared to physical goods, service emphasize interactions and communications already, but it will be even more. So you will
Absolutely.
have yeah.
Absolutely. When you mentioned about the feeling intelligence, the feeling economy, I just had a questions around whether you are referring to the emotions of AI or emotional intelligence of AI or the AI's ability to feel human emotions. Like which way are we talking about here?
Currently, at the current stage, we think feeding AI is not very mature. It's developing, but it's not very mature. You can see a lot of applications, for example, like conversation chatbot, claim to show some very basic level of human emotions, or we have sentiment analysis to try to identify emotions in online reviews, and but these are not very successful, and it's still very analytical and a calculated basis. And what we are talking about now in the feeding economy research project is humans. Humans, because of the biological basis of biological emotion, you feel aroused, you feel activated, and your body react differently. So all these physiological parts, AI doesn't have that. And so these parts are unique to human beings. And this part unique to human beings, we should emphasize this more. I think we tend to undervalue human emotions. And that is not right, because especially in service communications and interactions, those parts are so important. And
Definitely.
we should not overemphasize how important for the cognitive thinking. We can let AI handle that part, and we can handle the human
Definitely.
parts.
Definitely, you spot on, Ming-Hui. I mean, I absolutely agree with you, especially when my PhD was all about the emotions and how designers can leverage, the smell to influence the human emotions during their interaction with the AI. Do you have any sort of the projects, any new projects around the the AI emotions, other than what you've been doing so far? Do you have any new research projects in pipeline?
Yes, I think I can mention two. The first one, for the feeding economy one, other than those conceptual models and prediction we have made, actually we are providing empirical evidence. And the one interesting empirical evidence we have so far is, since we consider human service providers or human service customers really should emphasize feeding more, would they give female an advantage? Or female may be less disadvantaged in the feeding economy, because in general, female tend to be better in feeding intelligence. And our empirical evidence actually support that.
Yeah.
Support that thinking AI actually can put females in a less disadvantaged position than before. When we talk about information technology in general, or talk about digital transformation in general, all these technologies, information technologies, seems to help males more. And then that's really put female in a disadvantaged position. But AI, because AI basically up to this stage is a thinking machine. So when it is a thinking machine, it really gives female a fair playground, because female in general really can leverage their feeding capability better than men in general. So that's a very fascinating finding we have so far, female advantage due to thinking AI.
That is very interesting. Then how do you measure the success of service innovation and feeling economy? Because measuring emotion has always been a contentious topic for many decades, right? So how would you measure emotions to evaluate or assess the success of service innovation in the feeling economy?
Oh God, I love this question. Because it refers to the definition, the service definition that the ISSIP has. That is, it's more about well-beings, the well-beings of stakeholders. It's not just whether the service company is more profitable and the consumer get more utility. It's not just that. It's all about the well-beings of stakeholders, and then the stakeholders can be, it can be service provider, can be customers, can be AI, if AI is part of the ecosystem, service ecosystem. So the overall outcome, the purpose and outcome of service innovation should be increase the well-beings of all the stakeholders in the service ecosystems. So I think well-beings should be a more relevant dependent variable as than other probably more profit-oriented dependent variables we talked about before.
That's interesting. So well-being is as the outcome, right? Basically outcome of the emotions. Then how value co-creation fits into this picture then? Because we often talk about value co-creation, right? And service innovation.
I can talk about value co-creation because service by definition is co-created over time. The key is over time. So service co-creation is a dynamic process. And in this dynamic process, we need to take all the actors or players in the ecosystems into consideration. So actually, our most recent research talk about AI as customers. It means in the ecosystems, we have service provider, we have human service providers using AI to provide service, to interact with customers. And we also have human customers use AI as their agent to interact with human service providers or to interact with human service providers AI agent. So in that service ecosystems, we should include service providers AI agent and the customer's AI agent as actors. They are there. So they are part of the ecosystems and their welfares or the entire well-being should be considered all together. So that would be a very interesting idea that is also our most recent articles that we are talking about, that new idea.
Then I think that relates to my next two questions about your response to the survey we ran last November. I know that it's been ages ago, so I know that your memory is a little bit hazy, but yeah, but then when I took a quick look at your responses, you mentioned a lot about emotions, the feeling in AI, emotional intelligence of AI, and etc. And that you also explicitly put it in words that it's not, the service innovation is not only about the knowledge, but then also the emotions as well. So do you think that from your point of view, what is the future of service innovation then?
The future service innovation, in addition to what I mentioned, that the soft service will be expanding and become more important, and well-beings, all stakeholders' well-beings in the ecosystem should be the outcome variables, dependent variables. I think service innovation not only should go for that direction, but also should think about that is in an ecosystem involved with multiple intelligences, not just thinking and feelings. And so we also have to care about our emotions. In the past, sometimes if you use the word emotional, it tends to be negative. And we try to make everybody very rational, but that is not right. And so service innovation should take a more balanced view to recognize that is a trend, because we actually demonstrate that empirically. It's a trend that the entire service economy will lean more toward the soft parts, the feeling parts. So that is a positive. That's the positive development. And we don't have to think about emotion is negative thing. So should balance. I think we should be more balanced about should pay a balance between the cognitive and the affective parts, and recognize that is a good direction is in service innovation. It's not the bad development of service.
And it sounds like that applies to both B2C and the B2B context as well, right?
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. Very interesting. As a final thought, is there anything else you would like to share with the ISSIP community before we close the call?
I would like to emphasize a couple of things. I think the first one is really to pay attention to the service ecosystem will include AI as an actor. And the AI actually can be the service provider's agent, also can be the customer's agent. And we tend to ignore, we tend to take AI as a service provider's tool. And we ignore that as AI continue to advance, we see autonomous car already. And then we see a lot of AI really is autonomous. So AI gradually will have its own identity, will play a role autonomously in the service ecosystem. And that really should be recognized. We should well prepare, because when AI play an important role in the service ecosystem, we need to learn. We need to learn how to manage the interaction. Value co-creation, we often talk about value co-creation between service provider and the customer. We tend to, we forget about you are co-creating the value with AI. And how to manage the interaction with AI to co-create value, how to manage AI as your customers, and how to manage your service employees that AI and the human employee need to work together. That's our team. If you want to use AI as your agent. So to manage the human labor and AI as a team, to recognize that both customers and service provider can use AI agent. So AI is part of your ecosystem, not just your tool. Also, and the feeling economy, that AI, when you manage the AI human team, that AI do the thinking and recognize the value of your human employees or human customers' emotion. Those are not negative things. Those are the essential strengths, human strengths that you can leverage.
Amazing. The feeling economy. There we go. Okay, thank you so much for joining us, Ming-Hui, and we look forward to having you again in the future. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.